One of the things I'm most proud of is the EPA wastewater issue where if you listen to Ken Walsh, about every other day he brings up the EPA trying to take over our water bills. Well, I was able to go to Tallahassee and testify to the EPA, and we have not won that war yet, but we pushed them back by a full year on their decision-making authority. And we coordinated with tea parties all around the state, and the EPA was expecting a small handful of people to show up, and they had 500 people at their hearings in Tallahassee, Orlando, and Fort Lauderdale. And I guarantee you the ratio was about 499 to 1 against what they were proposing. And the thing was, we had our facts and we challenged them on our science. And these were not, you know, we're upset with you, this was your science is flawed. And you know what? The EPA actually came out and said, you were right. The science we were using is flawed. And you know, so we're tracking that closely, but we had a direct effect. We've supported the Destin fishermen. I see Mayor Barker, I guess former Mayor Barker, now as of a week or two ago, is here with us from Destin. But you know, we've been really supportive in trying to help those. Jeff Ross has been involved with that as well. And we had a talk about Arizona. Let's not forget our friends in Montana and Oklahoma, where the states are truly stepping up and doing things for themselves. And now I get to tell a quick story about Florida Senate Bill 6, the education bill that everybody talked about. And the question is, did we make a difference? And what I'm talking about is we, the Fort Walton Beach Tea Party. Now the first thing people say when I talk about this bill is, you know, well, I thought this was about teachers and the unions. Well, I'm going to tell you a little story that it isn't. And it has directly to do with the first line on our core principles about reading and defending the Constitution. But the way the story goes is February 6th, Chris and I, Chris, wave your hand, we had an opportunity. Senator Don Gates, our state representative, has these neighborhood days. And Chris and I went to one and we sat down with the senator for about 30 minutes. And he outlined his legislative agenda. And he mentioned a jobs bill, which by the way, we had a lot of input into it. The class size amendment bill. And then he casually mentioned that he was a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 6. And this was one of his legislative agendas. Well, being the legislative guy, when that bill got posted on March 2nd, I read the bill. There was a line in that bill when I hit line 30 that said, requires that the commissioner certify a report to the governor and the legislature by a specific date, requiring that the school levy an additional millage if it fails to adopt a salary schedule. Now the key word in there was requiring that the school adopt an additional millage. What that means is your property taxes go up if the Commissioner of Education said so. Reading directly from the Constitution of the State of Florida, the school board shall operate, control, and supervise all free public schools within the school district and determine the rate of school taxes within the limits prescribed therein. It is right in the Florida Constitution that the school districts shall set the school rates, and they shall have control. They were trying to pass a bill that, as a non-attorney, I believe violated the Florida Constitution. So I contacted Senator Gates and expressed my concerns over that. There was no return to those communications. On March 23rd, Senate Bill 6 was introduced into the State Education Committee. Passed on the 25th, it was passed. In 48 hours, it was introduced and passed in the Florida Senate. On the 26th, with the help of Carmen Reynolds back there somewhere, she helped me get an article put into the Navarre Press. I sent in letters to a couple letters to the Daily News, which were printed, as well as I contacted every representative in the Northwest Florida delegation expressing my concerns over the constitutionality of this issue. Now, interestingly, I was contacted back by most of them. And I'll tell you the outcome of that in just a second. But I want to switch gears because in working with Carmen over in Navarre, she brought to my attention that President Obama's administration is pushing something called Cradle to Career. And basically Washington wants to control our schools from Washington, D.C. Now, the Secretary of Education said, there's two quotes here, "Now that I am in Washington, it is even clearer to me that education reform starts locally, in classrooms, schools, districts, and states, and it is my job to help you succeed. Well, that sounds good enough. You know, he says, I want this to be done at the local level. A week after being sworn in, he says, the idea of 50 states doing their own thing doesn't make sense. Okay? So, when we talk about state and federal issues, then, based on this, I found out he was the superintendent of the Chicago Public School District. And here's a quote that I will leave you with on him. The majority of our students don't come from families with a lot of economic wealth. I'm always trying to level the playing field. This is the kind of incentive that middle-class families have had for years, referring to his decision to implement a program to pay students for good grades. Wow. Now, I ask you, is this the kind of guy we want running the schools here in Okaloosa County? No. So, no. Thank you, Jonathan. So, as I began to learn more about this issue, because I should at this point disclaim that I am neither a teacher, I do not belong to the teachers union, I have no relationship, nor do I have any children in the school system. So when I started looking at this, I became very concerned about how both Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. were trying to take over our school systems, whereas our Constitution in Florida clearly states that is a local matter. So on March 29th, thanks due to Carmen, the Navarre Press published my 700 letter word to the editor. That weekend, I received multiple calls from our state representatives who all said to me that they were concerned about passing this bill, but they felt it was too politically risky to vote against it. To which I said, I hope that you have somebody running against you if you cannot stand up for what you think is right. Yes. On April 9th, the Florida House passed this bill at 2:36 in the morning. They worked a marathon session. The vote on this bill was 64 in favor, 55 opposed, 11 Republicans voted no on this bill. Just so people understand, this was not a bipartisan, this was not a straight party line vote. On April 12th, a few days later, I received a call from a reporter in the St. Petersburg Times who had read my article in the Navarre Press asking me for a comment on Senate Bill 6. I also received on that day then a call from Don Gates because this reporter contacted both Senator Gates and myself on this issue. Then on April 13th, and I want everybody in the crowd to hold your breath and your hisses and your other noises, I was driving to Paxton where I do some volunteer work and I received the following voicemail in my inbox. At least I think I did. Sorry, let me try that again.
Hello, Mr. Kelly. This is Charlie Chris calling. It's about 10 till 9 in Tallahassee. I guess about 10 till 8 where you are. I just wanted to touch base with you. I saw some of your comments on this education bill and would love to have the opportunity to chat with you about it if you get a chance. My cell number.
If you want to know if people in Tallahassee are paying attention to what the Fort Walton Beach Tea Party does, I want you to hear that and understand they tracked my phone number down and the governor called me and left me that voicemail. Awesome. I had the opportunity to speak to the governor of the fourth largest state, the census says the third largest state, for 15 minutes on this issue. I gave him the constitutional reasons why I was opposed to it. On April 15th, I received a call from his chief of staff letting me know that in 10 minutes the governor was going to walk out and veto the bill and that half of his veto statement was going to be the language that I wrote in the letter that Carmen arranged to get published in the Navarre Press. We're making a difference and people are paying attention to what the Fort Walton Beach Tea Party says and does. I was contacted yesterday by the Daily News for comment on the half-cent tax increase because we are attending those meetings. The Constitution of the United States was written to limit federal power.